Hey everybody, so today we're going to be melting a candle and creating a flame for it. So let's start off with creating a geometry node. Inside of the geometry node, let's start off with the candle. So this is just going to be a tube. Let's change this to polygon, add caps. And then let's take the height, because I'm not sure what height I want it to be yet. I'm going to copy the parameter, and then in the center in the Y, paste a relative reference, and then divide it by 2. So that way, as we adjust the height, it will adjust where it is in the Y direction, so that way it looks like it's on the ground all the time. Well, it will be on the ground all the time. Okay, so in Houdini, each unit is a meter. So now this is a 1 meter tall candle, which would be pretty big. So let's say we do it like 0.3, and then we have to adjust the radius to be kind of proportional. And so 0.3 would be like about a foot tall. So this is a nice, big, beefy candle that we're going to be working with here. And then, just for fun, let's round off the top. So let's select the top face, poly extrude, pull that up, and then inset it a little bit, just so that the top is rounded off. There we go. So that's going to be our candle. Now let's create a wick for this candle. So it's going to be another geometry node. And really, with all of these names, I probably should name it properly. Underscore geo. Underscore geo. Okay, so let's create a line. So the line is 1 unit tall, obviously too big right now. So let's say the length is 0.33. See if that sticks out a little bit. It does, just enough. I am happy with that. So let's add more points. And then let's add a jitter. So point jitter will, by default, make it like super crazy. We just need scale to be very, very low, just so that it's not perfectly straight. It is kind of going down through there. And then let's do a poly wire. And the poly wire is pretty thick right now, so it's 0.1 radius. Let's put it, and that's still too big. There we go. So that looks appropriate. And I think I might add more segments to this, or maybe just smooth it afterwards. Let's see. How about instead of smooth, let's do a subdivide. I like that better. Okay. So we have the candle and we have the wick. I'm going to start off by getting the candle to melt, then we will get the wick to kind of go down. I think, what range? I'm trying to think of what there is, oh, a sweep. There we go. So if we add this here, Okay, the sweep's not going to do it. I thought it would. I was hoping that I could get the curve to go through the length of that. So what we'll end up doing is probably a Boolean and then subtracting it, so that way we go down. Actually, we can go in here and just visualize it at the end. There we go. Okay, so let's get this candle working. So what we're going to need to do is create another geometry. And this is going to be our heat source. With the heat source, basically what we're going to do is have another geometry that will heat up the particles in the water or the fluid simulation, and then it will make it less viscous and melt down. So let's take a look at here. We're going to create a sphere. This is huge. So let's bring it down. Let's make it just polygon, not polygon mesh. Make it a little bit smaller, about the size of that. Then I'm gonna bring it up just above it. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a mountain node. Oopsies, just pushed enter. Don't need to. With the height, we don't need to go as intense with it. And then you can see that it will kind of offset. So we can adjust the element size also, so that way we get kind of more variation. That's kind of cool. I'm going to bring that up, and then let's take the sphere and put it a little bit higher so that it's not in the cloud or not the cloud, but in the candle. Okay, so we have this going on. Now, if we take this and move it down and animate it, you'll see that it will kind of adjust. And then we can try it like that by default, but then we can also add in the mountain node some offsets. So as we offset it here, you're going to get different values. So we can try animating that as well. Let's say we do 120, so that's going to be 5 seconds. I'm gonna tell it to just loop, or not loop, but play once. And then let's put it to play in real time. Okay, then say at about the halfway point, 60 is where we're going to animate it going down. So let's click on the sphere. I'll click on here on frame 1, then go to frame 60, and we basically bring it down however much we want it to melt. Do something like that. And then let's play it through. So this is kind of how the heat source is going to be fluctuating inside of the shape. Okay, so now let's take the candle itself and make it a fluid. So we're going to go to viscous fluids, melt object. That'll give us kind of the default setup that we need for a melted object. Right now we can see that it completely disappeared and we don't see any particles. That's because the object's so small, so the particle separation is at 0.1. If we increase this, you'll see that we start seeing some points. We can increase it pretty high. but also take into account that it's going to slow down the simulation. Also, everything's going to stay in this area here. So I want to make sure that I'm not calculating this whole box over here. So if I click onto the gizmo on the flip solver, I can bring the box in much smaller so that it's only calculating the area that we need. Oopsies. Okay, then let's zoom in. Obviously this is still too much. And then on the bottom, it's not enough. So I'm going to bring this part down here. And then let's take this. And it might be easier to see it from the front viewport. So here we can see that we're kind of way off. I'm going to calculate it about there. Bring it down. So it's going to be something kind of like that. And then let's look at the side viewport. And we can adjust it here. Maybe a little bit more because it's going to come down and melt off to the side. Okay, something kind of like that. And then let's go back to the perspective view. And we need to add a ground plane also. So let's make a ground plane. And it looks, let's see, let's play this, excuse me, let's play this simulation. And you can see that it starts melting right away. And it's taking a while to do, even with adjusting the box. So, just for the example, I'm going to bring down the number of particles. So we have to go to the flip fluid and bring that down there. Okay, so now if we play, we can see it melting right away and not the way we want it to. So let's go to candle. I'm going to write over that one. Okay, just saving it so that we don't lose anything. So we want it to keep its shape. If we go to viscosity right now, it's set to 1 in the flip fluid. So we can bring this, let's bring it all the way up. And it does settle a little bit. And so that's okay. And then we can also adjust this. I think this is pretty helpful in the cooling rate. So let's say the cooling rate, let's try 0.5. So you can see that it kind of slows down. But then also the minimum viscosity can be 0. So let's put this up to like 100. We might need to adjust it to be less. But you can see that it keeps the shape pretty good and it starts cooling off. Okay, so now let's make that heat source geometry we created into an actual heat source. So let's go to viscous fluids, and then we have the heat within object. And then fluid object, we want to apply to. So I just select it there and then push enter on the keyboard. And then we have that as a heating volume. Let's look at the default. You can see that it is heating up those areas as we go along. So it's cooling down pretty fast and we have a minimum viscosity set. So we can adjust the minimum viscosity and we can also adjust the output range for the heat. So we can try like bringing it up really high and you'll see that it should kind of melt. And it takes a while to cool down. So it's not melting. Let's take this, see if we can adjust the maximum. Let's try 1,000. Okay, it's still keeping its shape here, but it's not melting. So let's take the minimum viscosity, put it 10. Okay, let's bring it even lower. Let's put it at 1. So here you can see it's starting to kind of melt, but in not the way we want it because it's melting kind of off to the side. We just need to bring the heat intensity back up or decrease the cooling rate. Let's try 0.3 so that way it doesn't cool down as fast. Okay, so that kind of worked. I'm going to keep that high though because I don't want it to settle down at the beginning. So add a couple more zeros here. I just want to get it to an extreme point and then we can pull it back. Okay, let's go back over here. 0.2. So if we go to 0, it's going to be working really strong already. You can see that it kind of melts as almost like if it were water. So I don't want it to do that. I just need to bring the viscosity up enough when it melts so that it kind of stays together, but I want it to happen kind of fast. So this is starting to get closer. So this is where I'm going to be adjusting the minimum viscosity to get the look that I'm going for. So that looks pretty interesting. So let's try 0.008. Because I just want it a little bit more runny. But I don't think I need it like 10 times. That's quite interesting. Okay, and then let's try 0.4 here. Okay, and then what we can do to kind of look at different varieties is in the heat source geometry, adjust in the mountain node an offset, and it should give you a different result. So that's obviously not what we want, but you can play around with it. You can also animate this. So I'm going to say we set it at like 0 at frame 1, and then all the way down here, let's offset it. It wants to calculate everything, so I'm going to push escape and turn the brain off. I just set it to 1. It should give us a lot of fluctuation in the heat source. So I'm going to alt-click on that. And then let's turn simulations back on and try calculating it. I kind of like that. So if we want to see the geometry itself and how that is working, what we can do is it was created this candle geofluid. We can visualize it here. It is much slower than just looking at the DOP, so the DOP will be the points here. But we can look at it here and kind of see how the candle is melting. So it's a little bit kind of blobby, and part of that is the number of points that we have. So if we were to increase the number of points in the simulation, so here I can do, let's not do quite as much as we did before, just to try to make it run a little bit at least. So here we can see that it is working, but once we increase the number of points, the simulation works a little bit differently. So we probably want to go into the minimum viscosity and bring that down because we have more points now. And we can probably adjust the cooling rate as well. Actually, let's bring this much, much lower and see what the simulation will look like. So that's where it kind of splashes over, and I don't quite want that. But I do like how it's coming down faster. Let's try to see if an in-between state will work pretty well. And I feel like I like the way that is melting. The only thing is that I feel like it's happening a little bit too fast, faster than what I want. So I'm going to turn off the simulation for a moment. Go to the heat source here, and then I have the animation happening all the way up to here. So let's say we don't have it going as far. We only melt it a little bit, and then right over that keyframe. And then let's turn the simulation on and see if that looks any better. So I think I like that better. Although I might adjust the offset a little bit. Or the camera angle. It could be either way, because I kind of like that peak, but it's just in the camera angle that I'm looking at it right now. Not appealing. So maybe if I had it from this angle, and I was looking at it from here, I'd like it better. Let's see. And I think with like more time and adjustments, we can bring the particle separation up high and adjust it to go kind of slower so it just drips on the side. But I think as an overall shape, this is good. And then maybe we can, in the future, add like droplets or something going off to the side of the surface, and that will work pretty well. So now that we have that, let's do the wick, since that's going to be pretty easy to do. We want something like a box. And then the box, if I select this, we can see that we're adjusting these two attributes. I think that's all I'm going to do to animate it. So it kind of goes like that. And then we'll kind of have it go to about here. Set the keyframes, and then it goes a little bit lower by the end. Set keyframes, and then let's create a Boolean. Connect to this, and connect to this. And right now we are subtracting, which is what we want. So let's go over here. And let's see. You can see that it's not subtracting early enough. So we need to adjust the timing a little bit because it's not perfectly smooth, the timing coming down. We don't need to get it perfect, but we do need to get it better than that. So this one here, let's look at it from the front viewport. And that'll make it a little bit easier to work with. So select that. And then we can set keyframes here. And then maybe here I want it a little bit lower. And override that keyframe. I think that works pretty well. Let's take a look here. So at this point in between, I feel like the wick is a little high. And at the end, it is a little high as well. Not too high at the end, but it is a little high. So here, because it's a little bit hard to see in this view with the box in the way. Okay, now let's check in between. Okay, let's look at this, and I want let's look at this in the perspective view. So whatever keyframe I set here, it's a little bit too low. Okay, just overrid that keyframe. That looks pretty good. Okay. Then now we need to create a flame. So move this out of the way. I'm going to create flame, or sorry, we need to create a geometry. This is going to be our flame source geo. And this, we're going to create a sphere. Get the radius way down. And then let's move it up. That might be good enough. I'm going to switch this to polygon. Might be a little big, but we will see. Okay, so saving the project really quick, and then the flame source, basically we want to go to our pyro effects and create flames. Now we will see that we have a flame. We're going to have to adjust some of that, but let's get the timing, because obviously that's like super crazy flame. But let's adjust the timing of the animation. So I'm going to turn off the fire here, and then on the flame source, if we go inside of here, we have the object. Going to set a keyframe there, and let's go halfway because I know I set a keyframe there. So that way we have that following it. So obviously we don't want it to go inside of it. So we have to, oopsies, adjust that coming up. So now that is too high. And then over here, we need to make sure that it is up here. There we go. Let's see through the halfway point. Okay, that's looking up. Here it probably went in between here. It's too low. So let's bring this up instead of keyframe. So it's probably like a burst. There we go. Then at this point we can see that the wick is much lower. So let's bring it down here. Set a keyframe. So over here we are past the wick, so we need to fix the wick because it's a little bit high. This is also a little bit low. What am I changing? Okay. Here we can bring this down. Why is it not working? Let's just adjust it here. Okay, I don't know what's going on with that keyframe. Let's delete it. Delete keys. There we go. Let's go down here and something is going on. It's trying to calculate now. Okay, I have that there. And can we move it now? It is not wanting to move. It just like pops at the very end. I am not sure what's happening there, but you can see that it's not changing the value at all here. So just going to take the last two then, select them and delete keys. Hopefully that will help it. So somewhere around here we can hopefully move that down. Yay, that's working. So over here we're a little high. It's because there's like a burst there. Even here it looks like we're a little high on that keyframe. Let's put it at the end point and then we'll try to adjust from there. Actually, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we have that done. I'm going to put it on the out here so we can visualize it. And let's see with the flame here. And let's play. So we can see that the source is not growing fast enough to match it sometimes because it goes outside of the bounding box. So we need to give it a little bit of space. Okay, so we can go here to the auto.network. We should have, oh, sorry, not there. We're going to go to the PyroSim. Resize over here. Let's give it a bigger padding. My computer seems to be able to handle it pretty well, so I'm going to start it off there. And let's see when it moves down. Okay, so let's look at the Pyro here. You can see that the box is a little bit there, and then I'm going to need some more space up. So that way, as we move it, it doesn't have an issue with it going down. And then as soon as we get it kind of looking okay with what we got here, that might be a subsets issue because it is calculating out fine as we move it down. It just kind of jumps a little bit. Okay, so I like that. We can increase the substeps later. Let's take a look at the settings that we have for our PyroSim. There we go. So what I want, see the shape, dissipation, kind of turn it up higher, disturbance, I'll bring it lower. And shredding, let's bring that a little bit higher. Let's see how that looks now. Oh, let's not take the shredding. Let's see how that looks now. That is a little bit better. Let's look at the simulation. Cooling rate, let's bring this up higher. And then let's put the buoyancy lift not as high. So we do want it higher than that. Okay, and then let's see, let's increase the viscosity, see what that does for us. Let's do the buoyancy up higher. Bring the viscosity down. Okay. 0.01. So I'm just going to be kind of playing with a lot of these settings. So I do like that. That's looking a lot more flame-like to me. So the diffusion, let's increase this. Okay. Increasing it again. So that's still a pretty big candle. Let's try that. Getting closer each time. Okay, let's I think we're okay with that. Let's do sharpening. Let's see how that looks. And then dissipation. Disturbance, let's decrease this. Let's increase the dissipation. So that's going to hopefully make it cut off sooner. Okay, let's go to the simulation itself. Let's adjust the cooling rate even higher. Temperature diffusion. And let's see. Okay, let's take the shape and the dissipation. Let's put it at 0.001. Let's see if that changes it. Because I think that might be spreading it out a little bit. Okay, and then maybe we can adjust the size of the flame itself. Make it smaller. And then let's look at the pyrosim. Okay, and then buoyancy lift. Let's bring it down a little bit, but take the diffusion down. Let's see how that works. That's starting to look like it. Okay, that is cool. So let's do 0.08. Okay, so now that we have that, let's look at the pyro sim here. Actually, that is good. Heat source. Oops. Let's look at that there. Where do we find our substeps? Padding. Let's try that really quick. We can see that it's reaching higher than what we want. I want more of a flame. I mean, this would be working right now if I didn't have it melting so fast. So I just am trying to compensate it for melting so fast. Let's increase the temperature, see if that helps us some. Oops. Okay, let's go here and diffusion. And let's see that. Okay, and then let's look at shape. Let's see if we can sharpen it really high. And then let's add some shredding. Shredding's not going to be what we need for this simulation. Let's bring it all the way down to 0. And we will want a little bit of turbulence. That's going to make it kind of flicker side to side. Simulation, the buoyancy lift is just too high. Okay, that looks better. Let's take the turbulence down as well. It's kind of coming up as a ball, so I need to get the buoyancy lift higher. Just not as high as it was before. And subsets here. Let's increase this. Max subsets 5. And that should help when we're moving it down. So as we add substeps, it's going to slow everything down. So it's coming up in a ball like that. So I need the buoyancy lift up, and now that we have substeps, it might be enough. We're moving too fast. Need more substeps. No, it's in the solver. Advance. 50. It's gonna slow down. Okay, let's take the buoyancy lift. I think we had it like really high at one point. Let's see if that's enough to get the flame shaped the way we want it. It is. It's getting us more of the shape that we want, and then we can do the diffusion higher. You can see that it's really looking candle-like now. And then in the end, what I might need to do is adjust the speed of it going down, because it just might be too fast that it's moving. Here in combustion, that is 3.5. And I had the ignition temperature, I increased it. Let's decrease that. See if we can get the look a little bit more fire-like. Oops, I don't need it playing backwards. I just need to adjust some of these settings still. Let's put this at 1. 0.5. Okay, and let's see how that looks. So the diffusion is too high. Okay. I feel like we'd get the candle wick size looking pretty good there, but then it moves too fast. So let's adjust that speed really quick of the animation. So heat source geo, we have a point where it's going down to here. And let's just make that not as high, which means all the other animations going to need to be adjusted. Okay. So let's look at the simulation here. I'm going to go to the object. Here I have animation on this. Let's delete the whole animation. So I can just go delete channels and I'll start it off there. And let's make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Okay. And then play through. So you can see it melting here. It's going to stay in that higher range. Ooh. There, it melted quite a bit. So let's take this heat source. It looks like maybe some of the shape just gets really crazy at one point. So let's take the mountain node and the height. Let's bring this down 0.1. And hopefully that makes some change. Let's reset simulation and play it through. I think that looks more manageable for our flame. The candle is really blobbing up on top, although I guess candles kind of do that. If we had the particle separation higher, we would get some dripping here, which would be kind of cool. Okay, so I am liking that. Let's take a look at the PyroSim here. And we have the PyroSim by itself, and let's shape it to look more like the flame while we have it at this just staying still. So 0.01 diffusion rate. Okay, that's looking a lot nicer. Let's take the buoyancy lift and put it like at 0.1. And that should make it where it comes up, but hopefully not as high as it was a moment ago. See, I like the shape, it's just that it is now taking too long to disappear. To look at the turbulence here and make it a lot less. So that is looking pretty good. Maybe I can take the combustion and Let's make it, oh, not the frame height. Let's put that at 3.5. Actually, let's try it lower. But what I want is maybe this higher. So that's good. Let's, I think the turbulence is really what is making it kind of disappear. Let's see if the flame looks better this way. Yeah, so we can see that it is not disappearing at all. Oh, it is. What's causing that? So let's take this, keep that on there since we know that it's not doing that. Let's bring the inefficiency down. Let's see if that keeps it. Looking better in that frame range. Nope. Let's see, it disappears there. Not that necessarily it's a bad thing, because it would do that. It's just we don't want it doing it as much, although that flame is pretty good there. Let's see if we start animating it now. Let's take the flame geo and keyframe that here. So I'm gonna set a keyframe there. I'm just setting keyframes along because I know it's going to be staying there. I need it to figure out when it's going to start coming down. Okay, there. So let's bring that lower. Keyframe. And then play it through. So probably if I look at this, it's a little high here. So let's bring it down on this. Maybe just slightly down by the end. Okay, so let's see this. Let's go back here. Okay. Okay, so that looks okay. Now I just need to adjust the wick. Um, so we have the wick here. And let's delete channels and delete channels. There we go. So gonna look at it from the front viewport. Here, frame 1. Okay. Set keyframes there. Let's say frame 24. Can kind of go there. Can keep it the same here. Then frame 60. Bring it a little bit lower. And then here, I'll just bring it down at that level. Okay, that looks good. And I think we have a candle melting now. At least kind of the concept for it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now it's just kind of left for you guys to light and render it. Something to keep in mind with the flame itself is that you can, in light, assign a volume light to it. So that will light, create that as a light source. And let's look at it from perspective view. So you can kind of see that that's the light source, and then you can add other lights into the scenes as well. But now the actual flame is a light source in the scene as well. Okay, let's save that. And yeah, I'd love to see you guys' renders. And thank you very much.